Her nightmare saved a man from drowning. Jenny White retired to a small lakefront cottage in a community comprised mainly of senior citizens just outside of Tampa, Florida. When Jenny first moved there from her native state of North Carolina, she made up her mind to not think of herself as having been put out to pasture. She still liked to believe that she was a useful citizen with something to contribute to her community and to humanity. For these reasons she made a decision. She would find something to do with herself, and she would keep active. Since she had been a bookkeeper for 41 years, she decided it was high time to do something else. Something she had always wanted to do, and that was to make things out of seashells. Shortly after, she moved to her modest little cottage. Jenny began to collect a vast assortment of colorful seashells she would find along the beach every morning, where she walked with several of her new friends and neighbors in the community. It was not long before the table pieces and ashtrays that Jenny's nimble fingers made out of the shells were being sold in gift shops throughout the area. One of the women who owned a small shop which sold her candy crafts was the wife of the local sheriff. The shop owner and Jenny became fast friends mainly because the woman admired the retiree's level-headedness and energy. Once, while the two women were sunning themselves and walking along the beach, as was their custom on Sunday mornings, the shop owner asked Jenny, "How is it you aren't afraid, living alone the way you do?" Jenny smiled and replied, "What is there to be afraid of? I have my friends and neighbors on all sides of me. I'm always busy, so there's no time to think about fear." "But aren't you nervous?" "I don't know how you do it. If it were me, I'd have nightmares and wake up screaming every night." Jenny merely smiled and said, "Perhaps that's where we're different. I have never been nervous in my life. Oh, there have been times when I've been apprehensive, but never nervous. And nightmares? I never had one in my life." Little did Jenny White realize that she was shortly to have a most terrifying nightmare, one that was to awaken her interest in a new field, that of extrasensory perception. During her morning walks, Jenny became a familiar figure to those regulars who always could be found at the beach. She soon became friendly with the people she saw there daily, and began to look forward to greeting them as she went along with her straw basket, stopping now and again to pick up a shell. One of the people she invariably met with was a young man who always seemed to be first one on the beach and the last to leave. Whenever he would find a particularly interesting shell, he would stop Jenny along her way and give it to her. This was as friendly as they ever got. He did not know her name, nor did she know his. All she knew about the young man was that he was not a particularly talkative chap, and that he loved to swim by himself. After an unusually tiring day, when Jenny had worked exceptionally hard trying to fill an order for souvenir shells, which a gift shop in Tampa had requested, Jenny left a note for the milkman, locked up the house, and went to bed. She was pleased with herself, proud of the work she had accomplished that day, and glad to be alive because everything around her was right. Almost as soon as she had dropped off to sleep, she began to dream that she was out in the lake swimming against the tide. Not much of a swimmer, Jenny always knew enough to regard the lake with respect even when wading in the tepid waters along the shoreline. She would rarely venture out above her waist, but now in her dream she started to feel the earth slip away from beneath her feet. She began to struggle. Soon she felt she was fighting for her life. Then the water was over her head, and she felt herself strangling. As she struggled in her bed, her body becoming entwined in the bedclothes, she awakened, bathed in perspiration and gasping for breath. For the first time in her long and active life, Jenny was terrified. This nightmare was something she did not understand, for she had never once experienced anything like it. Without quite knowing why, she seized the telephone at her bedside and frantically dialed the number of her friend who was married to the sheriff. The sleepy voice that answered became alert abruptly upon recognizing Jenny's voice and the panic in her tone. "There's a man at the lake, near the jetty. Quick, save him, he's drowning." Jenny then banged down the receiver and leapt out of her bed. She stumbled over her things in the dark until she found her clothes, which she quickly put on. She then seized her flashlight and started for the door. The phone rang. Jenny turned back and picked up the receiver. It was her friend, the gift shop owner. "Jenny, are you all right?" "Of course I'm all right," was the short reply. "Who's drowning?" "How do you know?" "Did you send Sam out to save him?" "Did you send Sam out to save him?" "Yes, he just tore out of here." "Good. I'll go right down to the beach with my light. I'll do what I can, though I'm not much at swimming." Were you doing out on a dark night like this?" Jenny frowned at the question. "I wasn't out." "Then how do you know somebody's drowning?" This was the first time Jenny White suspected that she might be reacting to a nightmare, the first she'd ever had in her life. She suddenly felt foolish and ashamed. She was unable to reply. "Jenny, what on earth's wrong?" Finally, she realized she had to confess what had happened. She told her friend about the nightmare, how she'd unthinkingly picked up the phone, how it all had transpired. A stony silence followed. After a few moments, Jenny heard her friend say, "When Sam comes back, we better not tell him, or he'll be fit to be tied. Let's just say you looked out and saw what you thought was somebody thrashing around in the lake, so you called us without thinking." Jenny said in a hoarse voice, "All right, if you think that's best. I do. No point in us telling him that you dreamed you saw a man drowning. But the dream was as real. I know, Jenny. I've had them many times. I know what they're like. Sooner or later, I knew it would start upsetting you, living alone like you do." Jenny hung up. She was too upset to know what to do, and going back to bed would be out of the question. Since she was already dressed and still holding the flashlight, she unlocked the front door and went outside. It was a black night with only the faint glimmer of stars in the heavens. In the distance, down by the shore, she made out the lights of Sam's prowl car and another police car beside it, parked on the beach, the headlights directed into the waters of the lake. When Jenny drew nearer, her heart gave a tremendous leap. She recognized Sam, even at that distance in the gloom, and she was able to pick out the figure of the town policeman, too. Both officers were carrying a man out of the lake. She broke into a run. Then she stopped short, just beyond the ring of light on the beach, where the officers were beginning to give artificial respiration to the man they rescued. Jenny felt herself go to pieces. She sank down to her knees and sobbed uncontrollably. It had not been just a nightmare after all. She was still sobbing when Sam came over to her and eased her to her feet. "Thanks to your alertness, Jenny," Sam told her excitedly, oblivious of his sopping wet clothes. "We got here in time to get that fellow out before he drowned. The man whose life Jenny's dream had saved. It was the young, silent man she saw daily on the beach. He had had a whim to go for a dip, got caught unexpectedly in the tide, and had been fighting to escape the surging current when his rescuers appeared. How Jenny had come to have a nightmare just at that hour for the first time in her life, and how she had known it was an actual vision of someone drowning, is a mystery to her. As a result of her experience, Jenny joined a group of other individuals who had occasionally manifested the strange ability to pierce the consciousness of others, and this has given her a new interest in life. Too, since she had saved the life of a drowning man, she now feels that she has something to live for, and that her life was a little more than just worthwhile. Who knows, Jenny tells herself, but there may be others whose lives I may some day save.